I want to talk a little bit about Kink. You know, Diddy has gotten support from several communities during this trial. There's the hip hop heads. There's the I don't care about women or I don't care about Cassie people. There's the abolitionist crowd that's like, you know, Diddy's doing considerable harm, but the carceral state shouldn't be dealing with it. And then there are the people who aren't necessarily rooting for Diddy, but are trying real hard to separate a lot of the most salacious and sensational parts of the Diddy fiasco from they're trying to separate the sex stuff from the harm stuff, you know, because a lot of people, when they heard what was, you know, in Diddy's house, all that baby oil, when people heard about what has been called freak offs, and I respect you not wanting to use that term, when they read the details of Diddy's sexual proclivities, when they heard the allegations of people like the producer, Rob, or when, you know, all these things, not to mention all the stories and allegations for years, people heard Diddy's a freak. Some people thought Diddy might be queer. Some people thought Diddy might be pansexual. There was a whole range of things people thought about Diddy, and I don't know anything about Diddy's sexual identity. I'm not particularly interested in that part of it. But what I am interested in is what I saw as an expectation from the prosecution and from the state more broadly, that if they threw all of Diddy's sexual shit out there, that that the public would not be interested in seeing him get a zealous defense, not because he did all his awful, horrible things, which he did, but because there are people who don't want to think about him with another man. There are people who think that, you know, having orgies or being polyamorous or sex parties, that they think all that shit is deviant. And if you could just make him a deviant, then you can lock him up for anything, because nobody wants deviants out there. And that's the way that, you know, there's a lot of kink shaming out there that I thought. And just to give you one example, and then I'll let you take it from here. That from there's this moment where where it was told that Cassie would allow these male escorts or other men to ejaculate on her, and then and then kind of go to Diddy, who would be in another room, and rub the sperm or the semen on his nipples. And, you know, there were conversations about whether that's just cuck stuff, whether that's sex stuff, whether that's queer stuff. Again, I'm less interested in that part of it, but more about the fact that there are people who be like, oh, no, that nigga gotta go.
Right.
And like, why? Like, so talk to me about how Kink plays into this, into the trial and the case. And also, like, the public knows a lot more about sex than they did before this trial.
Right. And so, you know, some of the folks that I was following that were in the courtroom said that some of the jurors really were just tired of it. Like, because they got to see videos of these events, right? And they were just really put off to the point where it seemed like they were just trying to tune it out and kind of get like, so not even kind of looking at it, you know, hey, well, let me analyze this as evidence, whatever, but more like, I'm freaked out by this, right? I think that was part of the prosecution's intention, and I didn't like that. Again, I have regularly said I think they focused way too much attention on these events when there were so many other things that they recovered in his house that they could have focused on. I think that we are still a pretty puritanical, sex negative society. And I think that religiosity, particularly among Black people, makes us among the most conservative, right? And that doesn't mean that we don't do certain things. It means that we pretend that we don't, and we posture like we don't, right? Because we have to maintain that image. And I think that people were shocked to hear this from him. Again, he's aspirational. And so in this way, he kind of falls, but so much of that was queer things and homophobia, right? Why would you want a man's semen on you, is what I heard a lot of people saying. Oh, he's nasty. Oh, he's, you know, whatever. And people really got locked in that. And in some ways, people want to see a gay Black man who they believe is a gay Black man, maybe living undercover. They want to see him punished, right? So there's that part of that. Some of it is just stuff that people would never consider doing themselves, and they see it deviant or whatever. I didn't like the kink shaming that was happening, but I also wanted to remind people that the violent parts of this took it out of the realm of consensual kink. Right. So whatever he was doing, you could say it was kinky, but it was not, to me, in my opinion, actively participating in the safe, sane, and consensual kink that we participate in.
What is kink? For those of us out here in the community who hear that word and probably use it too loosely, or don't understand that it's coming out of a very specific thing. What is it?
What, kink?
Yeah, what's kink?
Okay, so a kink is a particular desire you have that generally falls outside of what society deems is so-called normal. So again, we're relying on societal parameters, right? And this is not to be confused with a fetish, which people kind of interchange them. A fetish is a compulsion, and it's something that you cannot achieve pleasure without, right? And so on some level, I do think these events are a fetish for him. I think that
it seemed that it became that.
Yeah, it kind of comes out to this point, like he's compulsive about this. Like even when they were raiding his home, he was setting up another one. Like you have to be kind of in a weird space to still be trying to do this while you're being raided by the feds, right? So I think that he may have some issues around that. But a lot of people don't understand that it's just that you like something or you're into something that maybe the average person might not do. Right. So like people be like, oh, I like to be spanked. I like to be choked. I like to be these kinds of things. I like to have these, R play fantasies. I like, use a flogger on me, all those kinds of things. Like those are kind of fall outside of the norm. Right. So those would be considered kinks. I personally think that there are far more people that do it to the point where I don't even think we need to call it kinks because it's just part of what people do. They just don't want to admit it.
That's part of it too. As you get older and you have enough partners, you start to realize that some of the shit that you thought was like, your shit and extra kinky and extra outside. No, you start meeting more people and you're like, oh wait, everybody.
Like, that's people like that. And then they meet me and they're like, okay, damn.
Right.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm a blowtorch. What you thinking about tonight? Like, So right. That's why, again, so I'm looking at that perspective of somebody who is what we call an edge player. It's like, I actually like the extreme kind of things. So for me, I'm not watching this from he's a freak, he's whatever. I'm looking at this from an advocate kind of point of view. And I'm like, you're forcing these women to take drugs. You're right. Threatening, you're recording these and then using these videos like as threats and coercion to get them to do things, right? She wants to leave you and you're saying, if you leave, I'm going to release this video and destroy your career. That's not kink. That's not consensual. That's takes it into another place. And so it's very difficult to consent the next time when you were intimidated and threatened this time. And therefore, right. If you cannot fully consent that next time because you fear retribution, then that is not participating in consensual kink.
Consensual. Do you think that there's a long-term either advantage or disadvantage to the public discourse around kink now coming through the Diddy trial?
No, because I'm sorry, I have to say, I don't think people are smart enough generally. I'm sorry. Like, I just don't think that people are, the average person is not having that high level conversation. So I don't think that people really care one way or the other. I think the average person has pretty regular, what we call vanilla sex. They're fine with what they do. They're not really thinking too much about this. I don't think that kink is ever fully going to be mainstream because people are just too freaked out by it. I think polyamory is growing though, and swinging. Swinging is definitely becoming more popular, especially in Philadelphia. My goodness. But polyamory and consensual non-monogamy is definitely growing in popularity. I did a study about that and the rise among African-American millennials. And we're finding that way more people now are open, to exploring those kinds of plural relationships and those kinds of open relationships. And they're trying to do it in healthy ways. So that's the positive. People are getting educated about it. They're asking questions. They're joining communities to learn more. So we'll see more of that. But I don't think that kink is actually going to make that same transition. They tried it with 50 Shades of Grey until they realized that wasn't real kink, and they let that go.
Noted.
That's what happened.
All right, so
it didn't happen with R. Kelly, and R. Kelly, some of the things that he was doing would be considered kinks if they were not with children.
Right.
And so it didn't really shift the discourse then, right?
Yeah, and I think that was partly because of who the people were. We couldn't even no one wants to have that conversation.
Exactly. Nobody wants to have that conversation. So
yeah.